Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's segment of 20 somethings TV, Fall Semester 2021. You're joined with myself, Lee, Anthony, Matthew, Stevie, and Ellie. We have three topics today. Our first topic we're going to discuss is Tom Brady and his career.
Tom Brady recently joked about or came out with a statement joking about playing till the age of 50, and a lot of people decided that they thought he was being serious, which honestly he could have been because he's playing so well at the age of 44 right now, and he won a Super Bowl at the age of 43, which hasn't been done since Peyton Manning, which is insane, and he shows no signs of slowing down. He's still playing at top dog level, probably one of the best players in the league right now, even at his age. So it's just interesting to see how people think that he could play till 50.
Yeah. I like that he said, though, he was like, playing till 50 is a long time, even for me. But as I was kind of looking into it, I thought it was interesting. I used to have a crush on Drew Brees back in the day. I'm not like a big sports person, but I just thought he looked cool. And so I noticed that Drew Brees and Adam Vinatieri, I don't know if I'm saying that right, they're both retiring this offseason. So Brady will be the oldest NFL player that's active in this next upcoming season. He'll be the only one that's over 40, which I think is really notable, because I feel like as long as you're still playing safely, there's really no age limit to passion.
Going on just playing safely, you really can't play safely in the NFL. As you get older, your body's gonna deteriorate and not be able to go through the wear and tear that comes with being a quarterback in the NFL. You got guys that are 6'6", 295 pounds tackling you and slamming you into the ground with all their might very hardly. And after time, his bones are just not going to be able to take that anymore. They're not going to be as young and as strong, as healthy as he was when he first came into the league at the age of 24, or even right now. So I'd be interested to see how that plays out if he ends up playing till 50.
I think it's possible that he could play till 50. He right now is the oldest. I think the oldest person. He just beat a record from George Blanda, the oldest person to ever the oldest quarterback to score a postseason touchdown. And George Blanda was 38, and Brady was 43 last year. So he's still beating records, and he's still doing that stuff. So I'd say as long as he can still do it and still wants to do it, he should be able to.
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely some physical limitations that come with age, but I think that's going to be up to him. That can't be the league's decision. And if Bill Belichick, his former coach, can even say if anybody can do it, it's him, I think that's a big endorsement right there. Belichick can say that even after the hard feelings of him moving to the Dolphins. That's a big deal. Or Buccaneers, sorry. Can you tell I don't watch football?
I saw another statement from him that said that he'll retire once he feels like he can no longer win a championship. And I'm also not a huge football fan, but I feel like if a professional athlete is that talented, then they should be able to continue to keep playing until they feel like they can't anymore.
Don't get me wrong, I love the guy. I'm a diehard New England fan. He did great for me. I loved watching him play. But I played football when I was in high school, and I know not to that level of what it's like, but even in high school, my body was getting beat up every day. I just think there's a limit to how much he could take, and another 6 more years of that, it would be tough to see. And I hope he does it because I love him. But it would be really impressive, and he will actually undoubtedly go down as the greatest player of all time.
Okay, that's our first topic. Our second topic is Time's 100 Most Influential list that they just recently came out for 2021. I personally never paid much attention to the list. I knew it existed, but I thought some of the picks were really interesting. All right, does anybody have any thoughts?
I thought all the picks were influential in their own ways. Some negative, some positive. One that I thought was interesting in like a negative space is Tucker Carlson. And like I just thought about I thought about a segment he did on Fox News like last year, I think, or this past April, I think it was, and it was about like how if people wear masks, and if people are uncomfortable about masks, they should speak up and confront them, which is obviously a negative thing because it leads to fighting and leads to it just leads to a bad environment overall. And personally, I work in retail, and I've seen the effects of in like a suburban town too. So I've seen the effects of that and how that's like impacted society a little bit.
As you guys could tell, I'm a big sports guy, and one of the people that I saw on there was Shohei Ohtani, who is from Japan, and he's a pitcher and a hitter, which you don't really see that often. He's a dual player, and especially right now with all like the Asian hate that's going around and like the tough things with that, I think it's great that he's on there because he's really putting them on the market for like just being a normal person, just like everybody else. And he's doing great. He's breaking records left and right. He's a young guy too, and no one's ever heard of what he's doing, especially as a pitcher as well, hitting 46 home runs in a season. I just think it's really great that he's on the top 100 most influential people, especially right now.
As I was kind of like looking at the list, the textbook definition, I like wanted to make sure I knew it before I looked at the list to kind of like analyze it. And according to Oxford, it's having great influence on someone or something. So I definitely noticed that there were like some positively influential people, but also some negatively influential people, kind of like Anthony was saying. Like I think with influence comes like a certain aspect of leadership. I'm a leadership minor, and so today, like, it's crazy. We talked about this in class, but like a lot of leadership, like you have to be ethical. And so I feel like there are some people on the list that like I don't really consider ethical, and some people on the list that I definitely consider like leaders and influential. Like I'm a film major, and Bong Joon-ho is on the list, and he directed Parasite, which is like one of my favorite movies of all time, and like influences me so much. But I also feel like there's a negative influence. I don't know what everybody's political views are, but I think that Donald Trump's influence isn't exactly like ethical in a sense, but he is very influential. Like some things he like directly said led to like riots at the Capitol. So like I feel like yes, people can have influence, but influence I feel like has a positive connotation when I don't know if it necessarily should in some cases.
Yeah, just going off that, when I was first looking at the list, I definitely saw some people that I didn't necessarily like or I wasn't a fan of. And then I kind of realized it's not like opinion based. Influence isn't based on whether you like them or not. It's based on how many people they impact.
Yeah. Like I thought it was so interesting to be like Times is going to release this list of like people that like are influential and have like created some kind of change. And in my brain, I'm like, oh, they're influential. Like that's always going to be someone that's positive. But there are a lot of like really negative people even throughout history that have had influence that probably shouldn't like have, but they still affected like the course of things, which I think is like really interesting.
Going back to the Lee brought up Donald Trump, and I don't necessarily agree with him being on there as well, but maybe they put him on there not for his presidency, but for his business and about the amount of jobs.
I think he should be on there for sure because he is influential.
The amount of jobs he's opened up for like people, like even like through his golf courses and like his enterprises, like just creating so many jobs and like teaching people about like different types of ways. Even his like entertainment side of it too with that show Apprentices.
Yeah, just because I don't necessarily like him doesn't mean like I don't think he's influential. He's definitely influential, but I think like seeing him on the list definitely made me like, I guess, reframe that word in my brain and kind of made me like understand the list even more because like he is influential, even if I feel like sometimes his influence isn't always for like the greater good in my eyes because it's all, I guess everybody's perception is different. but influence is like, I don't know, just having, like the definition says, having a influence on the greater people or someone or something. So he is influential, but I don't know if he's always ethical.
And I'm pretty sure he's on there solely because he was the president, because he's been on there every year since 2016, like nothing from the 90s, early 2000s. So I think it's just solely because he's president.
I think that's really when his influence showed, because you can kind of see with like the riot, the Capitol riot, and stuff like that, and just how like people were taking the pandemic were mostly because of him and his influence. So no matter if it was positive or negative.
Yeah, I think it's also something you said. You mentioned Tucker Carlson earlier. It's no secret that he's gone on live television and spread misinformation a few times, but regardless of that, he affects millions of people with his words. So there's definitely influence there. Whether it's negative, that's up to you. But that's definitely something to talk about.
Our last topic of the day is covering a very, very recent case. There's a trending topic on Twitter called Where's Gabby? And Gabby Petito is an influencer and YouTuber who went missing. She went on cross-country camping with her boyfriend, Brian Laundrie, and he came back with their van alone. And actually recently there was a body found, and they're actually doing an autopsy to see if it is Gabby herself. Are there any thoughts on this case? Very, very frustrating.
I think they did determine that it was her, but for a while there was like a lot of, I guess, speculation as to what happened. I think it's so interesting, like psychology and things like that, and just I'm glad that this case like got a lot of like momentum, especially because like their entire trip was documented. I guess on the 12th of August they had like a fight, and that was all recorded on body cam footage. People thought like maybe that had something to do with it. But the two of them, I guess, separated for the night, and he was in a hotel and she took the van. And then kind of after that, their social media presence was like on and off. But she posted this picture. Hold on, she posted this picture on the 25th, which is the last day that her mom spoke to her. And people on the internet are like so insane in their research, but they saw that her roots aren't done, like my roots aren't done. But like you have to get them like touched up, and they're on like this month-long road trip. So on the 25th, she posted like with none of her hashtags, no nothing. But she posted that. And so some people speculated that like it was like a Halloween post. So maybe the road trip was supposed to end on Halloween and he posted it for her after something had happened. But I don't know. It's also crazy to think about.
Her mother did say that she received texts from her after the 25th, but she doesn't believe that it was from Gabby herself because the language that she used to text her doesn't really seem like her daughter. So maybe that post wasn't posted by her.
There's like a lot of skepticism, obviously a lot of fingers being pointed to Brian being the one that had something that killed her and was behind this whole thing. But if you watch like the end of the video, or not the end of the video, but it's somewhere in the middle of the video when they get separated, Gabby asked the police officer to make sure that Brian's phone is charged because she doesn't want it to die, like seeming that she actually genuinely cares about him, and then it almost is misleading that he wouldn't have been able to do something as far as killing her.
And the whole phone thing is kind of weird to me because while they were the officer was talking to Brian and he was like, what happened? And they were talking about the argument. And Brian said, I don't have a phone. So she runs off with her phone. I'm kind of left out in the dust. And then near the end of the video, the officer asks for his phone number and he takes out his phone and is like, oh, let me check. So I don't understand, you have a phone. The whole phone thing doesn't make sense, especially when she told the officer make sure he has his charger. So it just shows that he's capable of lying, especially to the police.
It's also interesting now, especially because I think his parents have been arrested for helping him people are calling him missing. He's not missing. He's fleeing from the police because he's now a person of interest in this case. But I don't know. I feel like it's weird because on the one hand, Gabby's parents are so gut wrenching and wanting to find their child. they have, unfortunately, not the way that they would like to. And his parents are like essentially helping him like get away with murder, and he's still missing. The Florida police are like in charge of the case, and they can't find him. Like he essentially got a head start because they didn't like look at him at first.
I think another thing that's just interesting to think about is just the public reaction, because this was like a national news story, and it's interesting to think about how that might have impacted the investigation, because if it wasn't such a nationally known story, they might not have taken it seriously.
A part of the reason I think it got so popular is because a lot of like college students like us can kind of like either resonate or see us in some point of this. Like we all grew up on YouTube. A lot of us like found out about the story through some form of social media. She's 22 years old. Like a lot of us are like in that same similar age range. And I feel like that kind of made a lot of us more invested because this could really happen to anybody, unfortunately. And so at one point, I feel like sometimes the media kind of sensationalize things like this. It also is like really informative. And I feel like a lot of people like saw themselves in certain, or could feel like connected to the story in a sense.
Yeah, it's a very sad situation. And that wraps up our 3 topics for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. That's it for our segment of 20 somethings. See you next week.